I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. Man, do we have a jam-packed show for you today. You might get an extra 15, 20, hell, maybe even 30 minutes of content today. That's how much stuff we have to go over. Now, of course, before we can even get started, you've got to follow The Locker Room on our social medias. Check us out on Instagram, The Locker Room Podcast 615. On Facebook, The Locker Room Host Jacob. On Twitter, TLR with Jacob. And on TikTok, The Locker Room 22. This episode of The Locker Room is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all your health, your supplements, your clothing, and gym needs. Everything you need to make a bigger and better you in 2021 can be found at FNX Fitness. Use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST, all capitals, for 15% off your order. So we have got to start the show off by talking about the late, great Kobe Bryant. Yes, today is the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death, and I know a lot of people, we will see it all over the sports media today. You will see them talk about Kobe's great career, talk about Kobe on the basketball court, Kobe the player. Today I really want to focus on, just for a few minutes, I'm not going to get too preachy here, I want to focus on Kobe Bryant in the last 2 years of his life, outside of the game of basketball. There is no question that Kobe Bryant, of course, had his bumps and bruises along the way. There's no question that Kobe Bryant is a great basketball player. There's no question that he is in many conversations and in a lot of people's top 5 basketball players of all time. But I think something that we really don't harp on or look at too much is what Kobe Bryant did in the last 2 years of his life. First and foremost, Kobe Bryant put his money where his mouth is. Kobe Bryant donated millions of dollars to black colleges, black high schools, funded programs to help get black people out of welfare, out of poverty, growing, getting jobs. Kobe Bryant did a fantastic job for his own community. That is something that I can't say I have enough respect for any louder. One of my biggest pet peeves is athletes that say they have a problem or they want to help their community or they like this charity, but they never put in the groundwork. We saw Kobe Bryant put in the groundwork to make sure that people in his community, people in his life, people that he had a heart for, had better lives before Kobe died. Another thing, Kobe Bryant was a great role model for young men and specifically young married couples and young parents. He used his platform to show the world, this is how you treat your wife. This is how you raise your kids in order for them to grow up and be respected, to grow up and respect others, to grow up and love everything that they do and put as much effort as humanly possible into everything they do. Kobe Bryant, the dad, Kobe Bryant, the mentor, Kobe Bryant, the charitable person that he is, Kobe Bryant, the husband, is the person that I want to focus on today. So to sum it up, I would say this. Kobe Bryant, although he was no perfect human being, although he had bumps and bruises along the way, although he struggled, although he had controversy, Kobe Bryant used the last 2 years of his life to the max that he could have. He was a great father. He was a great husband. He was a great role model for young black men in this country. He did a whole lot for his own personal community. He donated millions to his own charities. He influenced young men and women around the entire world. So in the famous words of Kobe Bryant, Mamba out. But in the words of us, never forgotten. Okay, moving on, I've got a beef with Dana White and the UFC. More specifically, the pay-per-view, whoever handles the pay-per-views. All right, I'm going to tell you this story in full because I was a little bit heated come Saturday night. So all week, I worked for the weekend. More specifically, I work for Saturday night. I have not been more excited for a UFC pay-per-view event than I have been for this one. First off, I'm a massive Conor McGregor fan. Second off, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 2 is going to be incredible. Third off, I've got Michael Chandler's debut in the UFC versus Dan Hooker, which I thought was going to be a nightmare matchup, but frickin' Michael Chandler shut me up real quick. Okay. I'm just going to get into the story. So, Saturday night, my wife has made a giant spread of all of my favorite snacks. We have snack heaven, right? We have pizza rolls, taquitos, we have chips and salsa, we've got all these other things. We've got homemade buffalo wings, we've got desserts, we've got our favorite drinks. Like, we have a giant snack buffet ready to sit down and watch this big fight. So I sit down, turn on my prelims, of course, on ESPN Plus, and I'm watching all the prelim fights because I'm a nerd and I like to watch the UFC even if I don't know who half of these people are. So I'm watching the prelims. Then it becomes fight time. So like anybody else would do, I sit down on my couch, I turn on my big 65-inch TV because instead of using that money wisely when we got married, I spent it on a massive TV. So yeah. So I would appreciate if you guys didn't tell my wife that it was our honeymoon money and instead I spent it on a massive TV so I could watch sporting events, right? But that's besides the point. So I sit down, I'm getting ready to watch the big fight. And I turn it on my ESPN Plus account. I had already bought the fight, so I didn't have to go through any crazy channels. The fight has already been bought. I go to turn it on, and the TV screen says, "You're in the wrong country." And first and foremost, I was like, oh, this is a very strange ad that should not be popping up on my TV. I go to click the fight again, and it goes, bam, you're still in the wrong country. And I go, horse crap, I'm in America. So I go, maybe I messed up my settings, right? So I go through my settings. It says I'm in the United States. So at this point, the TV is lying to me, and I'm not happy with that. So I go, all right, I'm going to call the helpline. So I go to call the helpline. Welcome to Verizon Wireless. This call cannot be completed as dialed. And I go, what? All right, so I call it again. Welcome to Verizon Wireless. It just goes on. And I'm like, okay, now I'm frustrated. And if there's anything you will ever know about me is when Jacob is frustrated, leave me alone. Like, just leave me alone. Let me be a psycho and, just don't talk to me, right? So I finally go, all right, I'm going to involve my wife. Let's see if she can help me. So she gets on the computer. She's researching while I'm trying to call these people. And I just keep getting, welcome to Verizon Wireless. And I said, okay, let's get on the internet and see if we can email these people. So we go to email them. And they go, oh, this web browser is no longer available. And I go, okay. So I'm already heated just thinking about it right now. Right, I'm already reliving the nightmare that was my Saturday night for my pay-per-view of UFC 257. So the internet says that it says they don't exist. And I go, okay. So apparently ESPN Plus does not exist for any helpline. Apparently their phones do not work. So after an hour of relentlessly calling them and getting nothing, and then finally I start getting busy signs. So it's like, okay, so this is a real number, and I just keep getting the busy signal. Because clearly everybody's having this problem. So I'm arguing with my wife. You know, she's mad because I'm mad. And for some reason, when a man gets mad, the wife gets mad. And men, if you're not married yet, or women, if you're not married yet, and you do get married, you will find out that everybody always gets mad at each other. If the other person's mad, you therefore are mad because they're mad. Right? So I'm sitting there, I'm angrily eating pizza rolls, which, this is a side note, ranch does not get eaten with pizza rolls. Pizza rolls have been touched by the hand of God, and combination pizza rolls don't need any sort of dipping sauce. You just pop those beautiful things in your mouth. That's all you need. Anyways, back to the story. So we finally get a hold of somebody. Or the phone starts ringing. So they answer the phone. Hello, sir. We'll be right with you. Click. And I go, great. An hour after that. So at this point, the fights are already almost done. I'm already fuming. And they put me on an hour wait. So you can imagine the tension that was in my household at this point. Finally get a hold of some lady. And she goes, I'm sorry, what seems to be the problem? And I go, your website said that I didn't live in this country. I said, then we tried to call your phone number, and it said that the phone number didn't exist. And I said, and then after that, your website said it didn't have a browser that worked. So I said, I finally got a hold of you. I just want an answer. I want my money back, and I want to watch the UFC 257 fight card from the start to the finish. And she goes, so you're not watching it? And I go, ma'am, if I was watching it, I wouldn't be calling you and I wouldn't be on hold for an hour. And she goes, well, let me take down your information and see if you even have an ESPN Plus account. What? Yeah, this is a real story. So I go, why? I literally go, ma'am, why would I be calling you if I didn't have an ESPN Plus account and if I didn't have a problem with this pay-per-view? She goes, just give me your name, give me your email, give me, the digits of the card that you purchased the fight with, and we'll see what we can figure out. So I go, great. So she takes all that information. 30 minutes later, she comes back to me. Now we are one fight away from Michael Chandler. And she goes, well, sir, it seems that you have bought the fight, but it's not letting, you're saying that the fight's not popping up on your TV screen? And I go, yes, you are actually just repeating exactly what I've told you already. And she goes, well, let me see what I can do about that. And I said, okay, wait another 15 minutes. Now we are right before the Michael Chandler fight. They are in walkouts, right? Michael Chandler's about to walk out. So the lady goes, well, sir, this is happening. Our systems are down here, and I'm sorry basically for the inconvenience, but there's nothing we can do. Just as she says that, and I start getting ready to cuss this woman out, bam, the fight pops on. I got to watch Michael Chandler. I got to watch Conor McGregor, and they refunded my money. But I had to go back and rewatch all the other fights on ESPN Plus after that. And the moral of the story is, Dana White, stop messing with hackers. Now, those of you who don't know, Dana White called out everybody who illegally streams UFC events. If you're not familiar with the UFC, they have been illegally streamed since the UFC has started. I have watched more UFC fights. I mean, I'm pleading guilty. I've done this before in the past. I would never do it now, hence why I tried to buy the fight. I have watched more UFC fights illegally on somebody's jank-ass phone than I've ever bought a UFC pay-per-view, right? That's just how this fighting game works. There's always illegal streams. I mean, you can go to a page. I don't know the page anymore, but you used to be able to go to a page where there was 40 streams so you could stream on whatever platform worked for you. So Dana White says, I'm pledging war against streamers this year. He's donated all this money towards the funding of stopping streamers. So in the final press conference for UFC 257, he says, and I quote, we've got you, MFer. I dare you to turn on your stream. So that then backfires on Dana White, because what happened was these hackers that stream these fights then said, we are going to wage war on you, Dana White. And I guarantee you, I know this is a little conspiracy theory here, but you can't tell me that all of the sudden, UFC and ESPN Plus is a cluster frick right before the fight. Right as the fight gets ready to start. I mean, the pay-per-view, the second it popped on, it's telling, and this was, I mean, there was 15, 20, 30,000 people online that were all messaging UFC at the same time. I know because I was on the message board, all saying that this was happening to them, telling them that they were in a different country, their card didn't work. And then somebody, one of these clever hackers, came on and said, all you have to do is buy the fight 3 times, then you can watch it. So then you had a bunch of people buying the fight multiple and even sometimes triple times in order to see if the fight would work. And this was all done by hackers. This was all done by the illegal streamers pledging war back against on Dana White. Now, here's what I would tell you, Dana White. You are going to spend more money trying to find and kill these streamers. And by kill, I mean destroy their stream, not actually physically kill them. You'll spend more money than that on that than you would if you would just leave them the frick alone. Listen, your pay-per-view was already second in UFC history. This last pay-per-view was, right? You are rolling in the dough. What is taking $10 million and $15 million and trying to fight streamers going to do? Absolutely nothing, but it's going to have a bunch of people who are good on computers attack the UFC and continually make it a nightmare for UFC fans. So Dana White, I've got a little beef with you here, man. Now, I got my refund. I was able to watch the fight. I was able to watch all the replays and watch all the fights back. Of course, it wasn't the same night of the fights, which kind of annoyed me. But, I got that taken care of. Dana better stop waging war on these hackers and these streamers because they're good with computers. And the FBI is not going to give two flying craps because Dana said he's going to go to the FBI. Great. The FBI didn't care about literally anything the last 6 years. What makes you think they're going to be like, oh, the UFC and illegal streaming? We will hop on train and on board with them and help them stop illegal streamers. It's not going to happen. So Dana's going to get himself into a predicament where every time he has a UFC event, one of these hackers is going to mess with ESPN Plus, is going to put a code here, going to jack all stuff around, and I can guarantee you that's exactly what happened because Dana White threatened the streamers, threatened the hackers. Listen, there was well over 3 million documented illegal streams going on at one point, so you're not going to stop the illegal streaming. Dana White, you're pissing me off here. Stop pledging war against people that can mess with my TV. I know this is probably one of the most selfish rants ever, but I want to be able to watch a UFC event that I legally pay for without you threatening streamers and hackers and then them jacking up my TV and saying that I lived in Serbia and saying that I never had ESPN Plus in the history of my life and telling me to buy the fight 3 and 4 times and then it might work for me. Don't have them mess with me because you're mad that they're illegally streaming. It's going to happen, bro, so just let it go. The Super Bowl is set. Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, leads a franchise that he just got to in his very first year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to a Super Bowl in year 1. And he is going to face Patrick Mahomes, who is now at his second Super Bowl, going back-to-back, a game for the ages to say the least. So in review of these games this past week, my picks did not make it to the Super Bowl. The Bills choked, as I did not expect them to, but they just played, quite honestly, bad football. Josh Allen played bad football. Their defense played bad football. They jumped out to an early 9-0 lead. I thought this was going to be the game that Buffalo really made a staple win, and they did not do that. And then, of course, Green Bay, they can just suck it as far as I'm concerned. What Green Bay did to me is take my heart, crumble it up into a piece of paper, and then toss it off to the side. Green Bay had every opportunity to beat the Buccaneers. Green Bay had every opportunity to help me win this bet that I have going on with a bunch of my friends and to make my prediction come true. And what does Aaron Rodgers do? Plays like crap. Their defense plays like crap. And they were given 3 balls from Tom Brady. Not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions, and they could do nothing with it. Matt LaFleur had a horrible decision to kick a field goal instead of going for it on 4th and goal. That is besides the point because Green Bay will never be uttered out of my mouth again. Listen, I'm from Chicago. Was I glad as a Bears guy to watch Green Bay go down in flames? Absolutely. Was I annoyed because I officially have lost my bet with my friends and I will not win the Super Bowl pool? In fact, I think my brother's going to. Yeah, that's probably going to happen now. So thanks Green Bay, thanks Buffalo. Now let's get to this Super Bowl because this is going to be incredible. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, the 2 best QBs in the league. Now, Tom Brady, although he struggled mightily in the last game, he played probably the best first half I have seen him play in the last 6-7 years. Easily. Played phenomenal. He sucked in the second half. There's not one person alive that can be like, he played fine, it was blah, blah, blah. No, shut up. He had 3 interceptions, right? They should have lost that football game. But a motivated Tom Brady to bring out a championship to the first-year Tampa Bay team would be a story none could ever imagine would happen. That Tom Brady at 49 years old, I don't even know how, I think he's like 44, 45, I don't know. He's old as hell. Just comes to Tampa Bay, turns it into Tampa Bay, and leads them to a Super Bowl. And then you have the young baby goat, as a lot of people like to call him. Somebody who already arguably has a Hall of Fame career in Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the entire NFL right now, gets to go to back-to-back Super Bowls with the possibility of beating the greatest of all time. You can't write these headlines. The NFL has not disappointed this year. This is going to be a fantastic game. Now, I want to get into a little bit of what we saw the first time these teams have matched up earlier this year. So, of course, we know we got a Kansas City victory, 27-24. This was the game that Patrick Mahomes had 462 yards. Tyreek Hill had 264 yards. Tyreek Hill had 200 of those in the first half. It was a game that they were blowing out. And I sincerely mean blowing out the Buccaneers. I think it was like 21-3, 21-7 at halftime, whatever it ended up being. I think it was 21-7 at halftime. This was a game that was well on the way to being one of the biggest blowouts of Tom Brady's career. Then the Bucs, of course, in the second half clawed all the way back. They got pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They sacked him twice. Pierre-Paul had a couple passes that almost led to interceptions. They stopped playing single-man press, which why you would ever play single-man press against Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, I will never know as a rational human being. So they stopped playing single-man press. They went back into a two-man deep safety, and they played basically the center of the field. So they took away that easy cross for Travis Kelce. They took away the over-the-top for McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill, and they just said straight up, you're going to have to beat us in between the lines. You're going to have to beat us every 10 yards. And that was the recipe to turn that game around. They clawed all the way back, ended up losing 27-24 in a fantastic finish to that game. Not a great start for the Bucs. But what does that game tell us? Of course, we know if Patrick Mahomes is on his game, if Patrick Mahomes is throwing the darts that he threw in that first half, no one's going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes from moving the football. All you can pray to do is slow Patrick Mahomes down enough to where he's not going to score 60 before you can score 61. That's all you can do. This Chiefs offense is arguably the best offense of all time. I've not seen an offense be able to score this quick in my entire lifetime. I would love to know if any of you out there, some of you that are older than me, if you know of an offense that you think is just as good as this, let me know. I mean, they can score at the drop of a hat. They have the fastest player I have ever seen in pads in Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce, who is basically a giant wideout. He is not a tight end. Let's get that correct. He says tight end, but he is not a tight end. He could go down if he continues on this trend. He could go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tight end of all time. If they want to keep that label on him as a tight end. So you have an offense that can snap off at any point with a quarterback that when he is on his game, he makes throws that people dream about. He is Aaron Rodgers, he is Peyton Manning combined when it comes to throws that he can make and where to place the football. Now, his football IQ has been a little bit poor. We have seen his growth, though, in massive spurts from last year to this year. He's now starting to learn how to read defenses better, knowing when to take off with the football. Feeling pressure before it starts getting there is something incredible that we have seen in his growth from last year to this year. So you basically have an unstoppable offense against a very good offense and right now a very good defense. This is where the Chiefs, I think, lack the most, and that is especially on the defensive side of the football. Now, you do have some great players over there. Of course, Tyrann Mathieu has the best instincts of any safety in all of football. Hands down, not even close. You can't name me a better one. The best instincts. I did not say best safety. There's a big difference there. But, of course, you have Tyrann Mathieu, who has played out of his mind this year, of course, as we fully expected. But more so, they rely on outscoring opponents than they do stopping opponents. They have a very tough time stopping the football, and I don't believe that, especially against a Tom Brady-led offense, they're going to get enough stops in order to seal this game early. I am fully expecting a high-scoring game here. I honestly think it could be a 45-38 type of a football game because it's going to be very hard for the Kansas City Chiefs to stop their offense. But on the flip side of that, the Bucs have the Kansas City Chiefs offense to deal with, right? Here's where it gets interesting. So Tom Brady has now taken full control of play calling when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians even came out and said, listen, I'm allowing Tom Brady to be calling plays, to be changing the plays, to be my eyes and ears out there and let him do what he does best. We have seen a Tom Brady-led offense over the last 3 weeks be very successful. Take away the second half of last week. Tom Brady had arguably and statistically one of the best playoff halves of his entire career in that first half last week. So Tom Brady has shown that this offense has gone leaps and bounds above not only where they have been, but they are close to what the Kansas City Chiefs can do in the sense that it is very hard to stop this Bucs offense right now, especially with Leonard Fournette playing at the level that he is playing at. Leonard Fournette is playing out of his mind. That spin to the touchdown was one of the nastiest plays I've seen in a very long time. So you have Leonard Fournette playing at a very high level. You have Chris Godwin, who although has struggled with drops recently, actually was almost leading the league in drops not too long ago, has now finally caught on and understood what he has to do. Of course, you have Evans, who always demands a double team, I would say 80% of the time. You have all these pieces slowly coming into place for the Bucs offense. We know what Kansas City has on offense. We know it. We know that when Patrick Mahomes is on, which most likely he's going to be, especially because he shows up for big games and big moments, you can only pray to stop them from at least scoring a field goal. Scoring a field goal or allowing them to score a field goal is like winning the Super Bowl already, right? They go to the end zone. That is what they do. They don't kick a lot of field goals. They score touchdowns. So all the Bucs can do is pray that their defense plays at the level that they have the last 3 games and hope that they can get at least 1 or 2 stops. Because here's the problem with Kansas City. Their defense has left them more vulnerable than they know. While their offense is a Lamborghini, their defense is a BMW. Still very nice, still has a lot of respect, but at the end of the day, it's no Lamborghini. Now, I would dare say that the Bucs defense, especially over the last 3 weeks, has been a Lamborghini, without a doubt. The pressure that they are starting to get on quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers had not been 3 and out in over like 7 games. They went 3 and out last week in the first quarter, in the first drive, I mean. So Aaron Rodgers has not been out in the first drive in a 3 and out in like 9 straight games, and he was out in the first drive last week. They got more sacks on Aaron Rodgers than have been allowed all year from that Green Bay offensive line. They got more pressures on Aaron Rodgers than he has seen in nearly 6 games. So the Bucs defense is not only able to get after it right now, the Bucs defense is quite honestly scary the way they're playing right now. When they shifted to 2 high safety, stopped playing press man, basically they play a cover 2, except it's like that play in Madden where you play cover 2, but then you just play as the middle linebacker and you take the middle of the field away. The Bucs have done that successfully 2 times now. Once against Green Bay, they played it a lot. And then, of course, they did it in the second half to the Chiefs when they were not only dealt with a ton of injuries, but they were still trying to find their identity. So this is where the biggest advantage comes from. The Bucs defense, the way they've played, I feel are going to be a lot for Patrick Mahomes to handle. While Patrick Mahomes himself is already a lot to handle, with that defense is going to have a lot on their hands without a doubt. This isn't going to be a shutdown defense. I think we're going to get into a dueling match here. And I do believe that the Bucs defense is going to be able to get more stops against Kansas City than Kansas City can get stops on Tom Brady in that offense. Because this is what I would say about their offense. While their defense is a Lamborghini, they're going against an offense that is a Lamborghini. They've got a BMW on their defense. I would dare say that the Bucs offense over the last couple of weeks, I would say it is a Corvette. Now, I personally like Corvettes more than BMWs. I know it depends on the person, on who likes what more. I don't care the value of the car. The Corvette, in my opinion, is higher than the BMW is what I'm trying to say here. So they've got a Corvette. They've got a Lamborghini. Now, the other side's got a Lamborghini and a BMW. Now, the question is, how much gas is in each of those tanks? Can Tom Brady and that offense not turn the football over 3 times? The second they turn here's the deal. If Tom Brady turns the football over once, it is going to be very hard for them to win that football game. If he turns it over twice, they will not win that football game. That's just it. Patrick Mahomes isn't going to be given 3 interceptions and not cash 2 of those in. That is why I said that Green Bay can suck it, because they choke so bad. They were given 3 presents and they couldn't do jack crap with it, right? Tom Brady, if he gives that to Patrick Mahomes in that offense, that Lamborghini's gone. 90 miles an hour gone. You'll never see it again. So Tom Brady can't turn the football over at all. What does the Bucs defense have to do? They have to play two-man safety over the top, not let anything go deep, and try and get as much pressure as they can up front. Make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable. If Patrick Mahomes can sit in the pocket all day long, you will never beat Patrick Mahomes. There's no defense. I'm telling you now. I don't care how good your defensive backs are, how good your safeties are, how good your linebackers are. I don't care if they're great coverage backs. It does not matter. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. If you give him more time in the pocket, he will not only pick you apart, he will shred you. He will not only score 30 points, he will score 50 points. That's just what Patrick Mahomes is good at, and that is why he's the best quarterback in all of the NFL. So can the Bucs defense get enough pressure? Can they play two-man over the top and not let Tyreek Hill get massive chunk plays of 30-plus yards? That is the big question here. But I think the even bigger question that has to be answered is, can Kansas City stop Tom Brady and that offense? Can they create turnovers? We saw Tom Brady throw 3 balls away last week. If Kansas City can get one of those, they've got a 90% chance of winning. They get 2 of those, they've got a 100% chance of winning. They get 3 of those, they have a 100% chance of a blowout. So I guess the final question is, which garage do I want to go in? What cars do I put my faith in to get me from point A to point B? Which cars do I think have the most gas? Which cars do I think have the most opportunity to take this game? I don't know if this is nostalgia. I don't know if it's because I love this player. I don't know if it's because he has already been crowned the GOAT. But I do believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win this football game 38-34. At the end of the day, while they have a Lamborghini on offense in Kansas City, while they have one of the best scoring offenses in NFL history, if not the best scoring offense in NFL history in terms of how fast they can score, I don't believe their defense can create enough havoc against Tom Brady. Green Bay had a very good defense. Green Bay has a 10 times better defense than Kansas City. And they were able to get 3 turnovers from Tom Brady. Now, a couple of those, I will say, a couple of those were just, I don't know if it was bad route running or just bad decision making on Tom Brady's part. A couple of them looked like just dumb not thinking about it plays. Now, we know Tom Brady going into a Super Bowl is not going to just make dumb throws just because that's just not what Tom Brady does in the biggest stage on the biggest nights of his life. We have seen that endlessly in his Super Bowl performances. He just does not play like crap when it comes to Super Bowl nights. So you're going to get A-game Tom Brady. But can they make Tom Brady uncomfortable in the pocket? Can they get pressure on Tom Brady? Can they make Tom Brady uncomfortable for the entire game? It can't just be a drive here and a drive there. They've got to make him uncomfortable the entire game. Because listen, if Tom Brady has time in the pocket, he is the best at finding the holes in the defense, getting the easy plays, putting the ball where it has to go. Can they create enough havoc? I don't believe their defense can create enough havoc. They can score with the best of them. This is going to be a shootout, to say the least. If Tom Brady can't take care of the football, if there's a lot of turnovers, if there's a fumble or a turnover on special teams, the Bucs can't afford any takeaways. They can't. If they give the ball away to Patrick Mahomes, this is a 90% runaway victory for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I don't believe that they're going to do that. I like Tom Brady's chances here in the Super Bowl. I just believe the Kansas City Chiefs, although their defense is still very good, I'm not trying to crap on their defense that bad. I don't think they have enough firepower on defense to make Tom Brady uncomfortable enough. And I do believe Tom Brady wins in a shootout, not only getting his 7th Super Bowl, but making his 10th Super Bowl appearance. So, Bucks, I have you down in my book. I know I've been wrong a lot so far this year when it comes to the playoff bracket. Actually, I've been right up until last week when the Bills screwed me, and then, of course, Green Bay, who I've cordially invited to suck it several times, can still suck it. But I've gotten pretty far. I did pretty good, about 70% on my bracket, so it's not terrible. Still pretty decent. I believe the Bucks get it done, so I'm going to go 38-34, final answer. I am super excited to talk about this next subject. One, because many of you know how much I hate this individual, and two, because we officially have a fight in the books, and that is why I had to put it on this podcast, because I did not expect to see that. Nonetheless, it is here. Jake Paul, March 28th, versus Ben Askren. That is right, UFC fighter Ben Askren versus Jake Paul. It is official. Many of you know how much I hate Jake Paul, and I can't wait to talk about this fight and break this down for you, because I had to put this on the show for the simple fact that I couldn't wait until the next episode of Puncher's Chance to talk about this, and we will be doing a full Puncher's Chance based on this fight card, just so you know. But I had to talk about this as soon as it came out. Jake the douchebag Paul is finally going to get what comes to him as he fights Ben Askren. Now, I know many of you are thinking, like, who the hell is Ben Askren, Jacob? And all we know is that Jake Paul is a YouTuber who knocked out Nate Robinson. Yes, because Nate Robinson was the biggest meme of 2020, being knocked out by a YouTuber, Jake Paul turned professional boxer. I put that in quotation marks because I don't want to discuss that today, right? I just want to focus on this fight and why Jake Paul is actually fighting a real fighter for once. Nate Robinson never boxed, right? So he's finally fighting a real fighter. Now, I talked to Ben Askren, this is not a joke, right before the show. He has a lot on his plate. Of course, he does a podcast that's very awesome. You should go check it out. He runs Ben Askren's wrestling camp. He has stats galore. I mean, this guy is a decorated wrestler, a decorated fighter. Stands at 19-2 as a UFC fighter. He has 2 losses. One was a disgusting knee from Jorge Masvidal, which, if I'm anybody, Jorge Masvidal owns the BMF belt. If many of you don't know what that is, Google Jorge Masvidal BMF belt, and you will find out very quickly why he has it. But the word on the street, and this is from Ben Askren's own mouth, Dylan Danis, many of you who don't know who that is, he is part of Conor McGregor's team. He's a good friend with Conor McGregor. He was the first one besides Conor McGregor being called out to box Jake Paul. Now, I heard, and this is from Ben Askren's mouth, that Dylan Danis was too much of a wussy, as I will put it in a very nice way, to show up and fight this fight. So, Ben Askren was the secondary choice, and he, of course, happily said, I'm going to take this fight. He talked to the UFC already. The UFC has already okayed this fight. Otherwise, of course, it wouldn't be happening. So he has full permission from the UFC to be fighting this fight. And here's why I think this could be good and bad. So the good part would be Jake Paul gets his ass whooped. Everybody gets to cheer and laugh at Jake Paul being a professional boxer. The bad part would be Ben Askren becomes another meme of Jake Paul after he knocks him out in the 3rd round. And then we have to put up with another year of Jake Paul being an arrogant little jerk. And I'm just tired of seeing that. So this could be good or bad. I'm more so bad for me because I know a lot of you enjoy Jake Paul and enjoy what he does, whatever that is, and you enjoy all his content. I personally find him a wildly obnoxious and under-talented fighter who, when he gets in there with a real fighter, is going to have real problems. So this could be good or bad. We could finally get the ass whooping that we are looking forward to, or we could get another meme and watch Ben Askren lay flat next to Nate Robinson. But let's break down Ben Askren versus Jake Paul real quick. More specifically, who Ben Askren is and what he's about. So Ben Askren is a 2-time Division I NCAA wrestling champion. He's an Olympic athlete. He's a 1-time world champion. He has a 19-2 professional MMA record, which is crazy just to say the least. He has defeated many MMA legends, and he has over 16 years of combat or MMA experience. So this guy is a decorated fighter. Now let's go ahead and talk about Jake Paul. Jake Paul is a YouTube star, a Disney Channel teen actor, and he's won a couple of boxing matches. None against real fighters. Now, I will say something that's very interesting about this fight. Ben Askren is not a striker per se. Not that he can't throw punches or doesn't know how to. Ben Askren is what we like to call a power wrestler. It's kind of similar to what Michael Chandler is. If you've ever watched our Puncher's if you watched our Puncher's Chance, you know what I'm talking about. Ben Askren, of course, is a division champion, an NCAA champion twice when it comes to wrestling, but he is somebody that likes to, when he gets in danger, when there's an elbow or an arm coming, he shoots for the hips and wants to power ground you. So what he does is he'll drop you to the ground, drive you into the mat, use his head and shoulders to beat into your face, and then pick and choose his spots to really hammer fist down on your face. That's what Ben Askren is. This is a full stand-up game, though. So somebody who's not, he doesn't have his gold stars in any sort of striking when it comes to his hands or feet. Without a doubt, that's where he lacks the most. So I guess the biggest question here is, what are we going to get from Ben Askren on his feet? We have never seen Ben Askren on his feet for long periods of time. We actually, in the Jorge Masvidal fight, we saw Ben Askren on his feet for 2 seconds because it was the quickest knockout in UFC history when Jorge Masvidal just came in with a flying knee and knocked him out. So that's besides the point. But we have never seen Ben Askren go hand-to-hand with a lot of fighters. It's been done in spurts. But we also have seen Ben Askren with knockout power, 6 technical knockouts, right? So we have seen Ben Askren knock people out. We have not seen him on his feet for a long period of time. Boxing is much different than the MMA and than the UFC. Even though that Ben Askren has been on his feet and, of course, has been there, he's been trained to look out for knees, look out for kicks, look out for elbows, look out for takedowns. In boxing, you don't have to look out for any of that. And it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around. And Steve would definitely be able to talk about this on A Puncher's Chance. It is a lot harder for an athlete who's used to having everything come at him now have to focus on one thing coming at him. I mean, I know these fighters say, "Oh, boxing's so much easier," and it's not the sense that it's harder for Ben Askren to be a boxer than an MMA fighter. It's the sense that boxing doesn't take as much as MMA does, and it's a lot harder for these fighters to focus on the one technical thing, and that's just being a good striker. What did Conor McGregor do so poorly in his bout with Floyd Mayweather? While he had great striking at times, what Conor McGregor did was his first instinct was to shoot for a takedown, get in the clinch, and how many times did he get warned with elbows and with shoulders and with all these other attacks because he's so used to the MMA world. And I fear that Ben Askren might have that problem here. I fear that Ben Askren might be in that world of the second he gets in trouble, he's going to try and shoot for the hips. Well, guess what, Ben? You can't do that. You have to fight straight up, hand for hand, against Jake Paul. Now, where he does benefit the most is fight experience. Of course, we all know Jake Paul went from making Disney Channel and YouTube videos to now all of a sudden he's 3 fights into his career, right? 2-0. Yeah, he's 2-0. But Ben Askren brings a fighting knowledge that Jake Paul will only dream about of having in 5-6 years. You know, he's a world champion. He's 19-2 in MMA, so he's going to understand how to be a fighter. He's going to understand when punches are coming, when he has to move, and when he can start moving his head, how he needs to move his head. I mean, his fight awareness and his fight cerebralness is going to be much higher than Jake Paul's. That's probably his biggest advantage. Now, I will say Ben Askren does have a lot of power in his hands. Don't think that they're, just because I say he's not known for his striking doesn't mean that this guy can't strike. He is a ground and pound, wrestle you to death until you're tired, and then he beats you to death when you're on the ground. But he has a respectable stand-up game. While it's not the greatest, he still has power in those hands. So can Ben Askren stay on his feet? Can Ben Askren really just focus on being a good striker? I don't know. We've never seen it from Ben Askren. That's just not his fighting game. And I'm very interested to see this fight. I'm very interested to see more specifically how Ben Askren reacts. Now, I will say his fight knowledge, his fight experience, and his senses in the boxing ring and the MMA octagon are going to be very similar. So he's going to have fight awareness. He's going to have puncher awareness, as we like to call it. So he's going to have a very, very high advantage, I guess I would say. He's going to have a very big advantage over Jake Paul when it comes to that. Now, on the flip side, let's go to Jake Paul. What do we know about Jake Paul? He's an okay boxer. He's got a lot of power, and he's a big guy. But Ben Askren's no slouch. I mean, Ben Askren's 5'11", but I think Jake Paul is like 6'2", 6'2 or 6'3". Like, Jake Paul's a big guy, right? So he's got a lot of power in those hands. He's a big guy, and it's going to be very interesting. what Jake Paul has going for him is he has nothing to lose here. If Jake Paul loses, he can be like, great, I lost to an actual fighter. I'll just train and get back in the gym. Or this could all be a giant stunt to make money, which I've talked about a long time ago on the podcast, how the thing that I have a problem with these YouTube stars is they're just out here to collect a check. They don't want real fights. Well, this is a real fight with a real fighter. I don't know that we'll ever see Jake Paul fight a real boxer like a Conor McGregor. I doubt that will ever happen. I know the memes have been coming out ever since Conor lost this past weekend, but I don't know that we'll ever see him fight a great striker or a great boxer. I don't believe that Jake Paul wants to go down that avenue, but he is fighting a real fighter here. This could, in all honesty, boost Jake Paul's, I guess, legendary status as a 3-0 boxer if he's able to get this win over Ben Askren. And what the advantages he has is that he's done nothing but box. So he is focused on nothing but punching, moving his head, and staying out of punches. He knows how to get in the clinch. He's a big guy who can stay into the clinch, push you up against the ropes. He's decent at what he does. So an experienced fighter is now facing Jake Paul. This is where the tires meet the road, I guess I was going to, this is where rubber meets the road. This is where there's no BS anymore. There's no, I've got to fight this guy or I've got to fight that guy. Dylan Danis was too big of a wussy to fight him, so Ben Askren's here. This is show up or show out. This is Jake Paul either as a good boxer and he's able to knock out a guy who's used to taking punches and kicks and all kinds of things to the face and able to knock out an experienced fighter of over 15 years, a world champion wrestler. He's able to fight and knock out somebody like that, or he's able to win a decision over somebody like that, or he's not. And we know what we all know, and which is what I think, and we know that Jake Paul is just a YouTube star who's collecting a lot of checks right now by saying that he wants to be a boxer, and he's doing a great job at promoting his bullcrap. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting. I'm not going to give my prediction now. I'm probably going to, of course, do a lot more conversations with this, of course, on Puncher's Chance. If you haven't seen it, hey, go back and check it out. See if you like it. See if it's something you're going to be interested in for the future, because we have a ton of fights that we're getting ready to do Puncher's Chances on. But this is going to be an interesting one. I will not make my prediction today. But like I said, I have spoken with Ben Askren. He is focused on winning this fight. And honestly, he is focused on hurting Jake Paul and making Jake Paul look like a fool on national TV. So I really hope that we get Jake Paul, the douchebag Jake Paul. I hope he finally gets his come March 28th. And finally, before I let you go, I do want to talk about one more thing. I'll keep it short. I know we're only a few minutes over, but hey, this is the good thing about the podcast is now you're going to get used to hearing me for longer. So when I do have our podcast coming up, and when you have more than one episode a week, you'll get used to it. Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to touch on this very quickly. They have agreed that they are going to part ways. They are looking for trade partners as of right now for Matthew Stafford. So I guess the biggest question is who is the most suitable team for this quarterback? First and foremost, he is a very talented quarterback, and players like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady have come out and said, hey, this guy can make throws that are pretty elite here. I know a lot of people are saying that his Hall of Fame career has been destroyed by Detroit. I still think Matthew Stafford has 3 or 4 more good years left in him. And if he goes to the right team with the right situation, you might see a Matthew Stafford that not only is a league MVP, but a Matthew Stafford that might be playing for a Super Bowl very soon. And I'm not joking here. First and foremost, team number 1 that I would like to see Matthew Stafford go to, the Indianapolis Colts. They just lost Phillip Rivers due to retirement. That team is loaded. And I said this, and I know we've talked about this several times on the show. The Indianapolis Colts are one quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl or getting to a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford is that quarterback. He is that good. Now, I know many of you are like, I've never seen him play, or I don't care enough about Detroit to really watch it that closely. Matthew Stafford is talented enough to lead a team like Indianapolis to the Super Bowl. Destination number 1. If he goes to Indianapolis as a Titans fan, as a Bears fan, I'll be happy getting Matthew Stafford out of that division. But as a Titans fan, I'm terrified because the Colts are going to run away with the division, not even close. They might beat us by 3 or 4 games next year. That's how good he will make the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts had the second best defense all year. They had, with Phillip Rivers, like the 9th best offense at one point. So with Phillip Rivers at the quarterback helm, at one point they were at 9. I think they finished the season somewhere around like 16, 17, late teens, early 20s. But Matthew Stafford would bring that team to a 5, probably with that defense, with having to move some pieces around, they'll probably be 5th-ranked offense, 5th-ranked defense, hands down, easily. Especially now they're going to get Marlon Mack back. They're stacked. Second team I'd like to see him go to, Chicago Bears. The Bears. Now, the Bears don't have a lot to trade for him. So the Bears would have to do, which is what I think they should do, trade their future away, go for a Super Bowl right now. Who gives a damn if you suck 5 years down the road if you're holding gold right now, right? The Bears are one quarterback away and 1 or 2 draft picks away from being Super Bowl bound. They've got a stud defense. The quarterback position has been the biggest thing that has ailed the Chicago Bears since the history of the Chicago Bears. What Matt Nagy can do with a quarterback that can actually make the throws would be pretty remarkable. You get Tariq Cohen back, who's a Swiss Army knife in the backfield. The Chicago Bears would be a fantastic landing spot and would project, in my opinion, the Chicago Bears as favorites for the division and favorites as well to come out of the NFC or at least go to the NFC Championship. And my next favorite landing spot for Matthew Stafford, and I only want to see him go to contenders, the San Francisco 49ers. I have never been a believer in Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm guarantee you that the Detroit Lions would be more than willing to get Garoppolo in a trade with maybe Raheem Mostert or somebody like that. I think that the San Francisco 49ers have a very talented defense, although they were plagued with injury this year. They will be healthy next year, and most of the players are under contract, so they will be returning. The offense has always lacked a certain oomph. In my opinion, if you look at the Super Bowl, Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't make the 1 or 2 throws that would have won that football game. This offense needs a quarterback. Plain and simple. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. I don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo is the way of the future. This offense needs a quarterback that can guide the football and get it to its best playmakers. The offensive line, while it definitely needs to be beefed up in this offseason, did a pretty decent job with Jimmy Garoppolo. The backfield, if it would stay healthy, could be one of the most talented backfields in all football. This quarterback and Matthew Stafford could make this offense hum, could make this offense, like I said, from a Corvette to what's above, I don't know what's above a Corvette, but in between a Lamborghini and a Corvette, because this offense has a ton of weapons, and it's hard to imagine that team right now. But if you just look at what they have on their roster, they've got a very talented offensive side of the football. They've been missing that quarterback that can give them that extra oomph, can give them those balls that they need to. Jimmy Garoppolo is not very accurate deep. He's okay 15 and in. They don't need an okay 15 and in. They need a quarterback that can get the job done. I believe Matthew Stafford's that guy. Well, there you have it. I was going to get to some of our fan questions today, but I had a lot of people write me as the show was going on. They got their phones later in the day or whatever it is. I did not have many of those questions until later. I have those questions saved, though, and we are going to open up next week with fan questions. So just make sure that if you want, I'll post it again. Check us out on our social media. Send in your favorite fan questions, whether it's about, it can be about whatever. I'm here to answer fan questions. We will open the show with that next week. I hope you enjoyed this show today, guys. I know it was a little bit longer, but there was a lot that I had to get to today, and I wanted to get it all off my chest. We have a bunch of big things coming up. Make sure you're following us on our social media. I can't say that enough, and I know you're probably annoyed at this point, and I sound like a robot. Follow us on our social media because we have so much coming up. I know we got a lot of love for Puncher's Chance. I want to thank my co-host Steve Hines for that because he just killed it, does a great job. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Like I said, if you love us, the best thing you can do, share us with a friend. Please share us with a friend. That's word of mouth is the only way to really get your podcast around. There's only so much money we can dump into advertising before it just needs you guys to help lift it off the ground. Show us some love. We will show you some love. Locker Room Faithful, you never disappoint.